Well, it's 5-10 deductions. So
Right. Will you do that in the other meets?
yes,
How did you guys come to that decision?
I told her.
Now maybe they'll change the rule about vault. Maybe?
Well, if you do a full, it doesn't need to be changed. But when you throw skills like this, it's better to protect the athletes no matter what can happen. Anything can happen. So
Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
Norbert's is on the road. They'll have a conference booth at Region 5, Region 6, Elite Nationals in San Jose, and GAT. So stop by and say hello. Mention GymCastic to get additional savings on their already 10% off show-only discount, because who doesn't want a discount on top of a discount? And of course, you can find out more at their website, norberts.net.
Simone Biles got even better during her time off. She destroyed the international all-around high score, getting a 59.1. Melanie de Jesus dos Santos of France was absolutely brilliant. Suni achieved what was thought to be impossible by her own doctors. Sky and Joss are bringing it. This is episode 35 for 2023. It's August 7th. We are going to tell you everything about what happened at Classic. And welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and this is Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. And if you're new here, we have a behind the scenes every Friday, so you can look forward to that this Friday. And we've been doing this for almost 11 years. So there are many episodes of the past that you can catch up on and gym nerd out. We also have a updated power ranking coming this week. We also, if you haven't got your live shows,
there's so much.
There's so much. I'm like, oh my God, we're doing so much this time of year. Live show featuring Simone Biles, coach and brevet judge, who was Simone's coach for 5 of her world and Olympic golds. Amy Borman is happening San Jose during championships. Tickets are on sale now. Go to gymcastic.com for more info on the tickets. And we'll give you more information later in the episode about that. Okay, US Classic, what are our biggest lessons learned? Have you broken it down?
Of course I have. Have I broken it down? Jessica, what is the deal here? So just a reminder before we start, we did 3 podcasts from Classic, full episodes for club members, only the first 15-ish minutes for everybody. And in those, we went athlete by athlete. What did you see from this person? What routines did you did? We talk about their individual performances, what we thought about them. Today, I want to do big concepts, step back a little bit, concepts, things that happen. But first of all, Simone. We need to start with Simone. GOAT for a reason. I think that's what was reaffirmed most of all at US Classic. Simone showing once again in her 3rd code of points as a senior elite now, remaining equally dominant through the different generations and the different codes. She won by 5 points here. Not new for Simone to win a competition by 5 points, but I did want to look back at when the first time Simone won by 5 points was and compare. So that was the first time she won a senior elite competition by 5 points was 2014 US Nationals, so 2 codes ago. That same weekend, Tiana Sumasakra, her world champions teammate, who was also in the senior field here, that same weekend, Tiana, who was 6, was competing at the level 3 NAWGJ Judges Cup, where she finished 5th. So don't worry about it. Always top 5 from the start. But I think that reinforces, like, that same day that Simone won by 5 points for the first time, Tiana had started. She was doing gymnastics, but it was kind of different. The eras change, and Simone remains the same level of dominant.
I also think it's kind of like, this is really, I think we saw the Gabby generation after 2012, and now we're seeing the Simone generation. Looking at like the Hopes, who were like the baby Hope elite, the hopefully going to be an elites that competed this weekend, and then the juniors, like the gymnast of color it's the dominant now, and it's so great to see. So yeah, let's talk about the 59-1. As I predicted, she would blow away the world all-around score, which was Listinova's Russian Cup scores, which are, as Spencer said in our episodes from Classic, notoriously accurate, that she would score above that, and she did.
Yeah. I think that she had fewer, like she was less rusty than I thought. I think
Yeah.
there was a lot of leeway for Simone to be like, all right, it's her first meet back. If everything wasn't perfect, she had like one small error on bars. She straddled her toe full. That was basically it. She was so ready on vault and floor, much more ready than I expected. I mean, expected, like we always expect everything from Simone. Like she can't ever exceed expectations because they are the best anyone's ever seen is what you expect. But she, I think, did exceed expectations for her first meet. Like by comparison, so that 59-1, if we compare to nationals last year, the highest score on either day was Shiley Jones on day one, who got a 57.2. So that's kind of where Simone ranks in terms of what we expect from the other gymnasts in the US. Big news, I think, was vault and the Yurchenko double pike. So do you want to go into that in some detail?
Yeah, I want to talk about that because we saw her do her vault, and it was way better than it was in podium training, just in terms of her control, because she was over rotating it very safely, which is the correct correction to make. You don't want to under rotate ever in gymnastics. Over rotating backwards is the way to do it. And I was like, yeah, as soon as there's a crowd there, it'll be fine, and she'll do it perfectly, which is exactly what happened. She had a small step to the side, but I do want to talk about Laurent, her coach, standing on the podium. So you're not banned from standing on the podium, but the closest that FIG can do to that is they say, we're going to give you a big fat deduction. We'll let you do it on bars as long as you don't touch the gymnast. We'll let you spot on bars, but not on vault or floor or beam. So I talked to Laurent about this and Cecile and asked them specifically about him standing in, because we did see after she did her vault, her D score was not what we expected. It was higher. Yeah. And we were like, this is wrong. What is this? And we saw that she got a 0.6 deduction. So she got a deduction for Laurent standing there and for her step to the side, a neutral deduction, which is what it's called. Not gymnastics.
More neutral deductions than execution deductions. Yeah. She had 4/10 in execution deductions and 6/10 in neutral deductions, which is very unusual.
So I want to play for you right now what Laurent had to say about standing on the podium.
Well, it's 5/10 deductions. So.
Right. Will you do that in the other meets?
Yes.
How did you guys come to that decision?
I told her.
Now maybe they'll change the rule about vault. Maybe?
Well, if you do a full, it doesn't need to be changed. But when you throw skills like this, it's better to protect the athletes no matter what can happen. Anything can happen. So,
do you think the FIG will be like, Laurent is right. We should let people stand there if your vault is above a 6.0?
I mean, I don't have that expectation of the FIG. They should. But I do kind of like that we're seeing in multiple cases the US, either the coaches or the judges, trying to push the FIG in the direction that they think, and I think in these cases they rightly think, that they should go. We're seeing that with the difficulty of Simone's vault as well, because we talked about this a little bit on behind the scenes, but we expected this vault to be a 6.2 in the current code, because the provisional rating last time was a 6.6. All the vaults were lowered by 4/10, so we were like, okay, it's going to be a 6.2. The score comes up with as a 6.4, which is our understanding is that's the US judge's provisional rating, because this isn't in the code of points, so it doesn't have an official FIG value. The US judge is saying, no, the logical value of this is a 6.4. If you compare it to other vaults, if you compare it to the men's code and the progression of this vault versus other vaults, you need to space things out by 0.4, which is what all vaults are spaced out by 0.4 in the upgrades. 6.4 is the value that makes consistent sense. That's what it should be. So that's what we're going to give it. And then we'll see what the FIG does. So don't be surprised if Simone goes to Worlds and it's a 6.2 instead of a 6.4. But I like that they're at least saying, yeah, we understand the code of points and it should be a 6.4.
And I like you're saying the FIG code of points, which if you're new, welcome to all the new people, that's the rule book for gymnastics that's used in Elite. And they have not always been consistent, as you said, with valuing things. Like there's supposed to be a logical progression, and it's kind of been like all over the place, especially when they're like, we don't want anyone to try that, so we're just going to give it a trash number for a value. And like Simone's double dismount.
If you would like a recent a recent example of one of our episodes where we talk about this, Nellie Kim, the code of Nellie Kim. We talk about this in depth of the insanity of the women's rules and the code of points, but it's not in the FIG code yet because no one has done it at a competition where you can get it named after yourself. So a world championships, a continental championships, a World Cup event, you have to have done it there for the FIG to give it an official value, put it in the code of points. Simone has only done this previously at domestic meets. Of course, no one else has ever done it because it's Simone. So it's not in the code yet. There's no official value.
And so Cecile said specifically that the value will be, you said 6-4 for a double pike, 6-0, which follows the logical progression of all the vault difficulties, 6-0 for a tuck, and no one's done a tuck. And so even though Simone performed this successfully at podium training at the Olympics, because she didn't do it in competition internationally, it's not awarded, as you said. So I just want to emphasize why there was a value and it wasn't done, but we've seen her do it, but it doesn't count. So re-emphasizing she has to do it in an FIG meet and specific FIG meets. So so looking at D-score is super important now. I mean, it's how Simone and Andrade are so far ahead of other people. I would also like to recognize that they also have consistently the best execution scores every time they compete. So it's not just that they have big giant Ds, it's how they do their gymnastics. But how is she doing overall with her D score? What's she coming in with?
It's huge is the news there. So her D score, her total across the 4 events was a 25.7 at Classic. Across nationals and trials in 2021, it was 25.4. So it varied, what connections she got, what skills she elected to perform in various days, but the average was a 25.4. So essentially, Simone is upgrading her difficulty. And there's another 10th because she didn't connect the stag out of her double layout half in competition. So there's at least one more 10th that she'd be intending to get versus what she showed at Classic. But it's higher difficulty than what she was doing heading into the Olympics overall, at least according to the code. There are, things she can add and other options because it's Simone. But I think one of the things that stood out to me that we didn't talk about immediately after the meet, now that we've had time to reflect and think about things, I think her composition is more efficient than it was last quad. And it's some smarter decisions. She has one fewer cast handstand on bars versus what she was doing before. It's a longer connection sequence, which we know cast handstands are just deduction traps, basically. You don't count that for your difficulty. You just have to do it to keep your routine going. And then
deduction trap. Oh my God.
That's what it is.
It is. Someone needs to make that into a meme for us, like a trap, with a handstand in it, a cast handstand in it, and the judges being like, snatch, we've got you now.
We got you. You had to do a cast handstand, so we're going to deduct for it, and you can't count it for your difficulty because it's only a B. So deduction trap. Fewer dance elements on beam. She got rid of those 2 side jumps. She's doing a more difficult mount now that she's counting and more connection bonus there. So it's quicker. There are fewer skills in there that can be deducted. So I think I'm really excited about the composition that she's doing, not just in terms of the amazing difficulty, which is of course the headline, but in terms of how everything is put together. I think it's also a really good model. Obviously, most people, anyone can't do the difficulty Simone's doing, but the model of how the routines are put together, I think is also really good.
Yep. I do want to talk about just beside the fact that watching this, it's like Simone got better. And I do want to emphasize she didn't take any more time off than she normally does. This is the same rest period that she took after 2016 that she's taking now. So she's on track for her. It's just that the Olympics are closer than they were because of the pandemic than they were normally. It's a 3-year cycle instead of a 4-year cycle. So I want to talk about just how the experience was watching her and being there and her doing an interview because she talked to us after the competition. So not before, Laurent and Cecile talked, and then afterwards she talked to the media, which is, I think, another way that she's managing her mental health. And I think it's super smart that she's doing this. She's doing things differently now. And I think it's because this is the advantage of being an adult and being older and wiser and doing this many times. Like I'm sure Shannon Miller would have said if she came back for her 4th Olympics, she would have, done some things differently. I mean, she's the same Simone, let's be honest. We're looking at, she's always the same.
I love her routine reactions where she was like,
she was like, what is this? She's always the same Simone wherever she goes. But doing her interview, some things that made me think it's the difference now. What I felt from her was the difference between when you're saying things that you think you should feel versus when you actually have that as part of your being. When someone started to ask her about, 2028 and, even talking about 2024, she's like, I'm just thinking about today. I'm managing one by. She just shut that shit down so fast. It was really the calmest moment of the weekend when like 100 journalists smashed in front of her. So the full interview is on YouTube. You guys can watch that. We'll link it in the show notes. But she said some things like, I truly didn't believe I'd be back here at all. She said, I am in better shape both mentally and physically than I've ever been. And another thing, I think about being a grown-up doing this even older. She's been a grown-up since she started her first Olympics. She was 19. But she also said something interesting is like for her, she's normally 50% at classic, 80% at championships, and then 100% by worlds. And so I think it's really important when we talk about classic, when we talk about how, NBC, as they do, trying to create pressure and all of that stuff for their storyline, are like, oh my God, it's live or die. They've sacrificed their whole lives for this moment. And there's less of that now. But, it was like, this is everything. It's nothing. This meet doesn't matter. This meet doesn't matter unless you weren't qualified for championships. And you don't want to be.
Which Simone technically wasn't, which we learned.
We learned last in our preview. I was like, she was so smart to get her qualifying score already at camp. And it was. We thought because that's the score she got, but USAG they consistently don't give us a list of who's actually qualified, and we learned that camp they weren't landing on hard competition surfaces, so it didn't count. So hopefully I've requested, as many have, USAG, can you please give us a final list so we don't have to,
So Simone only got her elite qualifying score by 8.6.
Only 8.6.
So she was
8 points.
8 falls. If she had fallen 8 times, it would have been a question. We would have been wondering whether she was going to get her score. I love that she's 50% at classic for a 59.1 all-around score.
I mean, that's the thing. Because we'll talk about some other athletes who need to do more at championships, but I'm like, it's smart not to be at 100% right now because you got to last till October. Yeah. October. So, she said the reason for her comeback is obvious, which is because of her mental injury, and she called it a mental injury, that she was not, she couldn't achieve her potential. She didn't allow herself to achieve her potential. She also talked about what happened that led to that. And part of it, she said, was too much pressure from the outside, not from herself, but it's not what you think. Like, it's not because the media, it wasn't because of the haters on all the socials, which she talked about, like deleting all of her social and just being like, nope, not going to look at that. And someone even asked her a question about it. And she was like, oh, you think people support me? You should see what it's like online. But she did talk about the arena and how great the fans were. It was like she was talking about the arena as a safe space for her, free from all the haters. And it really was. It was like the energy in the arena was like an Olympic trials without the grief of an Olympic trials. Cause like half the people there don't make it and they already know it going in and they're just competing like, oh, here's my dreams are dying while I do this front aerial and beam, which is true for so many front aerials. But
a lot of people at trials are super pumped to be there who aren't making the team. It's a huge accomplishment.
Meals was that one person who was super pumped just to make it. What's interesting is, a lot of people talk about how, it's kind of, she put herself in this situation by having a tour and leaning into the GOAT thing and all this stuff. But she said that was not it. It was her inside team. Let me repeat that. Inside team, specifically. She said, everybody telling me you're our gold medal token. That's a quote. After practice saying, and this seemed to be at USAG practice as she was talking about, you need to be more cheery because the girls are struggling a little bit. And she felt like too much was put on her. And she understood that because she's the team captain in her role. She had experience, but it was like so much that she said, quote, I couldn't do my own job. And her own job is managing her stress, managing her mental health so that she could be at her best, right? And she said she also feels like glad that this happened because she's in a better place now and she has a good team around her to manage that stress. And she feels more confident going into the cycle, which we could see. Because holy crap, her gymnastics was freaking glorious. If anyone was like, Simone, when you're 26, your gymnastics is going to be the best it's ever been. I mean, think if she can, she talked about, she doesn't want to think about the future.
If you told her that at her first national, she'd be like, shut up.
She'd be like, how dare you? I'm not. And she said, it's like once you get married, people start asking you when you're going to have babies. Once you come to Classic, everyone's talking to you about 2028 in Paris. And she's like, no, I'm just doing one meet at a time. Yeah. So, she just, this is a more mature someone who has done their work on themselves to manage their needs. And I feel like that's like putting up boundaries. Like if someone says that to her again, you need to be more cheery for everyone else. I feel like she'd be like, zip it. I need to take care of myself. You put on your own oxygen mask first, as every therapist in the galaxy has ever said to me. And then you can do the best for others. You have to take care of yourself first, right? So this is Simone with her oxygen mask on first. That makes me very happy. Also, our favorite Simone moments, talking about her being herself wherever she goes. Let's talk about why she owed Zoe Miller some money. So Zoe Miller got off bars and then twerked on the podium, and now she started a trend. All the kids are starting their knees on their hands on their knees twerk, and it's adorable. I love this as a trend. Every level 5 meet now is gonna have some twerking after routines, and I'm here for it. So she posted on Twitter that she owes now she lost the bet to Zoe Miller, so now she owes her $200 for doing it. I love that they had bets like this.
I do, and I think so smart for all the people who train with Simone. They're like, Simone, I bet you $4,000.
I bet you
I would do that all the time.
I bet you that private jet that you flew here on. Do you know what's really interesting? Talking about the support of Simone and how things have changed for female gymnasts and and female athletes in general now. Remember in 2018, I think it was, to Doha, which is half a day to get there. It's the longest flight besides Australia, I think. And she upgraded herself because she has Simone money. And by the way, it's not healthy to fly in the tiny seats, even if you're a little gymnast or a tall, regular, average size gymnast. I'm talking about height, not body composition, because your legs are all stuffed and bent the whole time. You're supposed to be a lay down. It's better for you, healthier for you.
Oh,
so
really?
Remember,
is that hard when your legs are all stuffed and bent into places all the time? Is that challenging for you?
Okay, Spencer, I always pay for your extra leg room so that you have the best situation for your health when we go on these trips, Spencer. I take good care of you, Spencer. That's my oxygen mask, and then I'm like, Spencer's height. That's number 2. Don't... These are the ways that we operate. Yeah. But
that's the best description of me, is that I do need someone to put on my oxygen mask for me. That's essential.
Don't stress out Spencer so he can do his best job. That is my job. But remember when people gave her shit for doing this? What about the rest of the team? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, why the hell should she not take care of herself in the best way that she's able? It's not her responsibility to take care of everybody else. USA Gymnastics should be doing that. So did you notice a shift between people being excited that she flew here on a private jet versus 2018? Because I did.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really, but also because Twitter's dead, I don't really see this stuff anymore. So I have no idea what the reaction is. So I'm like, yeah, everything's great, right? Everyone's happy, right? No one has any problems or notes. That's what I'm getting now.
Also, talking about her mental injury, we do have an interview with Steve Butcher, who was in the FIG executive committee. He's an ex-FIG. He was, but and he talks all about what happened from him as the FIG official and the mental injury and what happened with the doctor and what happened when Simone came up to him and how it all happened on the floor in Tokyo. And it's really interesting. And he also got like very emotional talking about it. And he's been a coach and at the top for a long time. So that was really interesting to see. I did feel like talking to Simone that this is not a criticism of her, because Simone is reflecting and other gymnasts are reflecting their own perception of the world. And that's fine. That's their perception of the world. But it's frustrating to me that the gymnasts don't know that they're not breaking age barriers, that they are not the, oldest or tallest gymnast to ever perform gymnastics at this level, I think. We have a page on GymCastic where we track the heights and ages of gymnasts that did and how many Olympics they did and what age they were at those Olympics. And I have to update this, but I think it's important to remember that the median age of gymnasts in Tokyo was 21 years old for the women. And the average age of world's competitors is 22. And the average age of world medalists in 2022 was 20.7 years old. And the two best gymnasts in the world, Andrade and Simone, Andrade is 24 and Simone is 26. So I think somehow the gymnasts, I feel like the Shannon Miller era didn't count for them because maybe they think they weren't doing as hard of gymnastics. But, Shannon Miller, she was doing just beam routines as hard as yours and bars. They didn't have to do 5 tumbling passes. But was she doing a full in dismount off beam? Yes. So I just hope that that'll change. But I do like that Simone said, quote, "You don't have to peak at 16. Your time is still coming." And that she talked about setting an example about being older, both mentally and physically, that you can still do it. So that made me really happy.
At Worlds in 2022, everyone who medaled was 18 or over.
Yeah.
No one who was 16 or 17 won a medal at Worlds last year.
Right. Adults. It was all adults. I do also love talking about Simone being Simone wherever she goes. I do want to play this clip from her interview because it was, as Scott Bregman said, vintage Simone. The question is, it looked like you were having fun out there. And she responded.
Oh, did it look like I was having fun out there? Oh, thank God. Yeah, I thought I was going to shit bricks, but...
Vintage Simone.
That's Simone. That's what we were saying. The dream is that we see Simone be Simone, and that's Simone being Simone.
Some people just like to give us no strings attached money. They don't want to bother with joining Club Gym Nerd, and so they just donate. You can find our donate button for a no strings attached donation at the bottom of the club page at gymcastic.com/club. Let's talk about the next lesson learned.
Yes. You mean we should talk about people who aren't Simone? We did our 30 minutes on Simone. Then we're okay. Yeah. I would say the biggest overall reflection for me in the non-Simone category is that the Olympians are not automatic right now. Just because you did doesn't mean you will. And I think we all have, you kind of default to people who've been on teams before when you're thinking about who are the top contenders for world championships, which is natural. But we saw a big push in this competition from Joss Robertson, from Sky Blakely, who was on the world's team last year, but was not on the Olympic team, maybe the two biggest or two of the 3 biggest stars who of the not Olympic all-around champions group in this competition. We saw Robertson show the upgrade to a Chung on vault, which was the best, by far the best we've seen her do it in competition. She showed an upgrade to a 6'4" D score on floor. She was super solid on beam. And I look at that like, it's not a given that Jade Carey is your vault and floor. Jade is still, we haven't seen Jade do vault and floor. She has this difficulty. She has this capability. It's not like she's been eclipsed. She's taken her time. But you at least have someone who is challenging at a high level with at least very similar difficulty in a way that's very exciting for us to watch and doesn't mean that previous accomplishments mean you're inevitable. And with Sky Blakely, didn't do the all-around, 3 events, but up there in terms of most prepared, most ready to hit, just confident, smooth, clean routines. This now from camp to classic makes 6 straight routines that have scored over 14 for her. She would have been, like, if she had done all 4 events, she would have been second to Simone. Like, on floor, she barely needed anything. Like, she could have just, like, gone out and done a star jump and the chicken dance and been like, all right, now I have, like, that's my floor, and I'm putting
star jumps.
It's a defining characteristic. It's a defining moment in gymnastics with going out and doing a star jump. Yeah. Anyway, what I want to say is, like, people like Jade Carey, Jordan Childs didn't do a lot at Classic, didn't need to, automatically qualified to championships. It's just Classic. So we haven't seen what they have to offer. But when you consider, and we haven't talked about Shilese because she didn't compete at this meet, but Shilese Jones, huge contender for the world's team as well. So it's getting interesting, it's getting exciting, it's getting competitive in terms of you have to keep improving.
Yep.
Like, your difficulty from 2021 doesn't put you on a team automatically in 2023.
Yeah. And I think we have to remember, like, Jade, you know, her dad is her coach, and she and her dad are excellent at playing the game and getting her where she needs to be to make teams. So I have full faith that is going to happen. She will be ready to do whatever she has to do. The other thing about Jordan Childs, a lot of people were asking why she was wearing a different leotard from her teammates, but that's because I think she has her own leotard line. So it's rare we see one team where 2 people on that team have their own leotard lines. And I loved her, like, space rave disco, like, Beyonce Revolution leotard. I also love Twin City Twisters, whose Leos were so disco ball that they literally reflected light onto their chins and their faces, so they looked like they were in a pool the whole time they were competing. You know, that, like, moving light from when you're in water. So that was a whole experience. It was very sports, their leotards, compared to everyone else, which are very, like, gymnastics. Jade also wearing her signature leotard, which is I thought was a tribute to the great forests of the great state of Oregon. Hashtag Redwoods. But it was apparently supposed to be the color jade, which jade comes in very many different colors. So I defer to whatever color. I mean, she knows what color she was named after. So yeah. Which shade of jade was it?
Big analysis. This is the kind of analysis people come here for. This is the expertise, the details. Jade knows what color she was named after.
The color wheel by GymCastic. Yeah, that's all that matters.
That would be quite a podcast. Jessica showing me colors and me trying to tell you what I think it looks like.
Every answer would be orange, gray, orange. Okay, did we talk about Shilese?
We mentioned that she did not compete here because she is still getting ready for championships. Yeah, but we haven't. Is there more you wanted to say?
She's showing all the things, and I know in our preview we talked a whole lot about championships and, like, basically qualifying and what you'd have to do here. And we did get clarification from Chelsea Memel and Sacramone that basically, everybody had to compete here. And that possibly to qualify to championships if they weren't already qualified, but that they would possibly reevaluate that rule because they don't want to exclude the best of the best gymnasts. And they had written the rule in a way that the best of the best gymnasts would be excluded. So they couldn't personally make that rule, but they would make their feelings known to the athlete selection committee and the elite committee. And we also learned here, lesson number 3, if you're following along at your notebook at home.
Yeah.
Kidneys are optional.
Yeah. Who needs them?
No.
Yeah, that's what we learned. Yeah.
Nobody needs those kidneys.
Suni, we were very concerned about, had she had enough time in training? Was she ready? Was she going to be able to get her qualifying score? And then she started the competition on beam and was like, I'm good at this. That's my impression of that routine. Super difficult, even though it was watered down, quote unquote. I love when you water down and do a side aerial layout, step out, layout, step out. You know a watered down routine? You know what watered down gymnastics is?
When you're like, I've been doing this since I was 7, you're welcome. it does not look like this is the thing. Like, I know she did an interview with the Olympic Channel, and she talked all about how like some days she's so swollen, which is something that happens with kidney disease problems, that she can't even put her grips on. And I just was not expecting her gymnastics to, I mean, we've seen it from her in college for 2 years. Like, her gymnastics is not diminished in any way, but like her fitness level for being able to do these routines without being tired, which is one of the hardest things when you're injured, is fine. Like, she just looked totally ready. I mean, the routines she did were exquisite. This is why she's an Olympic champion, Spencer. I keep telling you, don't count an Olympic champion out. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard, but she
won the Olympic all-around title?
The reigning Olympic champion. Also, did you notice in one of her pictures, she was wearing a Minnesota Gophers sweatshirt? Think she's going to finish school as a Gopher?
It's her state. She's repping her state.
Yeah. Do you think she will keep her gainer layout full dismount? Because it's ridiculous. Tuck full, sorry. Yeah, it's not laid out. It's tucked. But she has showed a double of that. Because, it takes less. It's harder fitness-wise to do it at the end of a routine. But you got to land it right if you're twisting that many times.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't get the 2/10 of dismount difficulty bonus because it's not difficult enough to get that. So she is losing. But if it's 3/10 better executed than a D or higher dismount, then I say it's worth it. But she is losing some difficulty, so she can do something that's high level as a D dismount, I think she'll do it. But if it's like even a slight risk, or like I might have a weird landing, or even like a large bounce back, not worth it compared to the gainer tuck full, which she can stick for 10s in NCAA, which we saw, plenty of times. Yeah, I think also the details with Suni is it was a big deal. She had to get her 2-event qualifying score here, which she did very easily. After that beam routine, it was like, this is done. She was like, oh, bars, I don't have to do you right now. I already got my 2-event qualifying score. You can step to the left for a second. We'll deal with you later. Because she was on the list as a maybe for bars. And I think that was probably just in case she needed to do another event to try to get her score. But now that she has her 2-event score from Classic, she can petition to do the all-around at Nationals. But she needed that qualifying score from Classic in order to be able to petition. So she's still eligible to do the all-around at Classic, as long as she petitions. And obviously she has, a very viable reason, like my kidneys, I haven't been able to do the all around, I have an injury, and so you can petition to do that. In terms of making the world selection camp, you do not have to have compete the all around at championships in order to make the selection camp. You have to make the immediate national team. And if you remember last year, we learned this with Leanne Wong, where she did great on 2 events, but then wasn't immediately named to the national team. And we were like, you guys, because she didn't do the all around, we believe our reading of the rules, it's going to be the same way this year, that the immediate people named are going to be all arounders. And then other people can be added. So if it's Suni, if it's Shilese, if they're like, I'm not ready to do all 4 events at championships, that shouldn't affect their ability to go to the world selection camp and compete there.
Yeah, we're talking about Shilese Jones, by the way. If you guys don't know Shilese Jones, you can watch a video or GymCastic video of Shilese before her Olympic run, talking about her family and what was happening with her dad, and before she moved back home to Washington State. I do want to talk about Suni. I want to talk about the moment after Suni, Olympic reigning champion, who didn't think that she would be able to compete necessarily here. She finished her beam routine, landed, did a beautiful beam routine, cheered someone on floor, and then ran to Dr. Faustin and gave her a huge hug. And it was such a beautiful moment, because she talked about afterwards in an interview how Dr. Faustin had been with her from the very beginning, and how like the two of them were in the same boat. They're like, we don't know what this is. We're going to figure it out. And how doctors told her like she probably wouldn't be able to do gymnastics here. And yet here she is, and she did a beautiful routine. And they like Suni crying and Dr. Faustin hugging her, and just having someone that she trusts who was there with her the whole way, and how loved and protected and supported she felt by Dr. Faustin was just like a beautiful moment, and that made me so happy to see. I do want to talk about some of the like pushback that people, or interpretation, I would say, of Suni's interview. So she, in an interview with the Olympic Channel, she said she's not supposed to be here, and the way that I interpreted this, and this is what Scott Bregman, who did the interview, how he interpreted it as well, is she was saying, like doctors say to normal human beings, which we know elite athletes are not normal humans. So lots of people say, like, you'll never walk again. You'll never do gymnastics again. You'll blah, blah, blah. And then they go for their entire life. The interpretation I had was doctors told her she would not be able to do gymnastics this year or maybe ever again. But because she's an elite athlete with superhuman kidneys, she was able to manage her health in a way that allowed her to be there. Not that they were like, you shouldn't do gymnastics at Classic, that someone told her no. It was the usual doctors underestimating the superhuman ability and covering their bases as they have to do.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's their
covering your base. It's mostly covering your base. It's way better to tell someone they're never going to be able to do gymnastics again, and then they do, than telling them it's going to be fine, and then they can't.
Right.
That's where the lawsuits are.
It's a CYA your ass for liability too, you know. And we've heard this in many years of interviews with athletes. They've been like, yeah, they told me I'd never walk, let alone do gymnastics, and here I am winning a national championship. So yeah, I do want to talk about lesson number 4, but Kalia Lincoln. Oh!
I love that a lesson is just like Kalia Lincoln.
The Beyonce of the competition.
It's the lesson to NBC. Lesson to NBC, Kalia Lincoln. Amend your expectations for nationals of who you need to cover.
Right.
Because Kalia Lincoln.
But before we talk about Kalia Lincoln, Club Gym Nerd. Get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, and extra podcasts every week, athlete dossiers, code guides, commission your own segments of the show. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at GymCastic.com at the Join the Club tab. I do want to tell you guys about some things we have coming up. So we have a live show featuring Simone Biles, coach and buffet judge, who was with her for 5 years. Not 5 years. She was with her for like forever, since she was like her first gymnastics class. But 5 of her world and Olympic golds, Amy Borman. I do want to say that unfortunately, Christy Phillips can't make it after all, which is, you know, you guys, for a long time, I didn't even announce the guests because things happen, especially when it's people working in gymnastics, that things come up. And basically because she has a judging commitment that now, and things with USAG are all over the place. So she has a judging commitment that she can't get out of. So she can't join us. So that's a bummer. And if you need anything, email customer service at gymcastic.com if you need a refund for your tickets. But pre-sale for tickets with Amy Borman, who's coached the Netherlands. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about all about coaching Simone, and she judged Simone here. So you raised Simone from an egg, and now you're judging her here at her comeback meet, and all the things she's experienced in different countries and here coaching. So tickets are on sale now at gymcastic.com. You can also watch virtually. You don't have to be there in person, and you get 2 weeks to watch those. So you don't have to be on, from another country in the middle of the night and get up and watch like everyone's doing for the soccer World Championships. It's at the San Jose Improv. It's Saturday, August 26th at noon Pacific, but definitely get there early. We have a comedian opening the show. And yeah, it's going to be really fun. Our shows are super fun. There's a full bar. They're super chill. We have fun. So the full bar, you will enjoy yourself. Just gymcastic.com to get those tickets. And also, we have a store where we have everything you could possibly want to rep your favorite gymnast, or being a coach, or being a gymnastics fan, or a GymCastic fan. So we have shirts. We also have giant tapestries available. If you saw that giant banner of Simone freaking Biles on TV when Simone dismounted bars, you can get that in our store. We'll put a link in the show notes, and it's actually on sale this week if you're listening to this the week after Classic. So yeah, it's a Simone freaking Biles has a goat. It's awesome, and you can get anything in our store, almost anything as a tapestry too. So you can rep Simone or Suni or whoever you want at the meet, and it's big enough that they will be able to see you and love it. So, I mean, they even talked about that on NBC, right? It made Terry laugh. Yeah, I love that. So anyway, check it out. And thank you guys so much for your support. Okay, back to lessons learned.
Yeah.
Kalia Lincoln. Why
Mhm.
wasn't she leading the show? Why didn't it open with Simone and then Kalia Lincoln? I don't know. It's like Simone, Joss Robertson. If you haven't met her yet, she might make a team, and also a hello, Kalia Lincoln. You guys, if Simone and Shannon Miller and McCool and Gabby Douglas had a baby, it would be Kalia Lincoln.
What a relationship that would be.
Her technique is perfect, much like Simone. Everything you want in a gymnast, floaty, beautiful, double layout. She is I cannot find a flaw with her at all, except like maybe she could her leaps. Spencer, I can't with her leaps.
I will say, sometimes Jessica will exaggerate. If you're new to this and you like when you get excited about a gymnast, sometimes like I'll be the judge of that. Let me see, because sometimes your feelings get in the way of your eyes. This time, I'm in. Where's the lie? There's no lie.
I mean, like maybe she'll get an artistry deduction because she could do a little more of some contraction and some bending down in her artistry, a little more zhuzhing. But her gymnastics is flawless. The E panel which is the execution deductions, which is like bent legs, and oh my god, they probably just threw their pens out the window, fainted, rolled around on the ground, and were like, where have you been all of our lives? We're so excited that our hands aren't cramping up. Oh my god, she's amazing. So she's from California. She did gymnastics at Airborne. Kale was her coach, Cleo was her coach, then her family moved to Texas, so now she's at Woga there. So she's a hometown
and she's at
girl
the
for two different states.
Woga with Sky
Woga.
Blakely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can claim her as your own if you're from California or Texas. And she represents all of our love of gymnastics, and I just can't say enough about her, you guys. Like, if
yeah. I mean, and she would have been on the highest scoring, world's team of 5 based on Classic, which is nothing, but just as an exercise, she would have been on that team. She's getting those scores. Big idea. I feel like we're putting her on the list of people who are allowed to do a switch half on beam, which is not a big list. There are like 3 people on it, but I'm that back leg. I'm like, that's okay. Yeah, I'll allow it.
It is a short list, and the fact that we're putting
list.
anyone on this list, there's only like 3 people in the world on this list.
Yeah.
So to make the list shows you how incredibly impressed we are by her. She is the future. She is the one. She is amazing, and she can do whatever she wants. It doesn't have to be our future. It's fine. Live your life. But my God, I love watching her gymnastics. What did we learn overall about this meet? And NBC has their arrows and their reds and blues and color, what are the ups and downs.
I feel like what we learned, not a new lesson, is you can get rid of them. It's all of this, green arrows, yellow squares. You got a horseshoe on bars. You got a porcupine on floor. Like, thank you. Great. Sure. Thank you, I guess. But all they need to do now is say 14. I feel like this is the most casual, fan-friendly era of scoring in the US right now, because it's like, for making a US Worlds team, for being able to put that event on or that athlete on that event in a team final, she's getting a 14. Which things vary. Like, the best bars workers are going well over 14. 14's a really good score on floor internationally, like a really high score. But then you look at the US, it's like Simone's getting a 15 almost. Robertson's getting a 14. Kalia Lincoln's getting a 14. Jay didn't do floor here. Jordan didn't do floor here. Shilese didn't do floor here. All of them can get 14. So that's like, even that is the standard for the US standard right now for making a team is 14 on floor as well. So, dispense with all the rest of it. 14.
Yeah. Speaking of which, did you see that Frosted Flakes has, I'm just
Speaking
saying,
of 14s.
Frosted Flakes has another gymnast they're sponsoring. So they have 2 Olympians now from 2021. They have McCallum and Jordan Childs. And I'm just saying, Frosted Flakes, kick down some of that money. I will rep a sugar cereal all day long. It's my favorite food group after Coke and East Coast pizza. So Blaze Pizza is the closest we have here. So I'm just saying, you guys, that's all. And good for those gymnasts for getting that sugar cereal money. Do it. But speaking of food.
Yeah.
We learned some other important lessons here.
Number 6 lesson is the meat is good. And we learned this lesson from Melanie DeJesus dos Santos.
How are you dealing with American food?
Sorry, but I don't like it. I mean, it's not bad, but in France, yes, the ham, the meat is good in Texas. But in France, it's better.
She put her, she did the chef's kiss, literally, and then she put her hand above her head when she was talking about French food. It's way up here. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, I know, that's why I asked you, like, how are you surviving on American, basically Texas beef is how she's surviving.
Yeah, the meat is good. That's what we learned. It's very important.
This how the 3 of the top 4 gymnasts from, I think World Champion Center swept what's podium? All around podium did they sweep? They swept something at this meet.
They swept a lot. 3 of the top 4 all around, if you count Melanie, which the official scores don't, but we do as a podcast. Much like we recognize Andrea Raducan as the 2000 Olympic champion. We recognize Melanie as the 2018 European champion, even though they didn't give all-around trophies that year, but she won the all-around, so we recognize her. Once again, Melanie not getting a trophy for her performance. Second in the all-around behind Simone. But the official standings are Simone in first, Leanne Wong was all-around silver, and then Joss Robertson was all-around bronze. So 3 of the top 4 there are world champions. Leanne Wong's the only one of the top all-around finishers who wasn't there. So yes, to your question, sure, it's the meat.
It's the meat.
The meat is good, is how you get an all-around score. This is the lesson.
And Melanie DeJesus dos Santos is from France, of course, and she has moved from her coaches in France to be coached by Laurent Cécile. And I did ask, is there any way that they can coach you in France? And they can't, but she does seem to have coaches in France now that she works with, that she works well with and trusts and are cooperative with Cécile and Laurent. So she did not get...
Why she can't be coached by Laurent and Cécile like at Worlds? Because there are plenty of coaches around the world who will change the jacket and be like, I'm coaching the Netherlands and now I'm coaching Egypt because I have different gymnasts who represent different countries. So why can't Laurent and Cécile just put on the France jacket when Melanie's going?
Melanie has never said specifically, but my understanding is that French coaches are under the French Federation, paid by the French Federation, and so they don't allow outside coaches to do that. So if later, the French Federation wanted to, after Paris, after Laurent Cécile's athletes win everything, then they might want to hire them to run the whole thing in France, and maybe they'll move back. Yeah. But it's a different system there. It's government funded, which is different than when people are totally I'm off topic now. But I just want to state that
I think you are off topic. I don't know why did I get dragged into this.
Nobody give them crap about how they're doing social media and making money, because if we wanted to as a society, we could decide we're going to pay for our athletes. It's just not going to be the pride of representing your country, but we are going to actually support them financially so they don't have to do all this other stuff. But we don't do that at all, besides their small stipend that will barely pay rent that they get from USA Gymnastics. So they have to be best friends with Tony the Tiger, which I love. Okay, what else did we learn?
But you don't have any strong feelings about it.
No.
Basically.
I don't. Yeah. It's totally fine.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think that, maybe the French Federation, going back to Melanie and the French Federation, maybe they'll look at the fact that Melanie got a 56.2 here, which is her highest all-around score in 3 years, and her actual best all-around performance since, I'd say, 2019 Worlds qualification was the last time I think Melanie did this well. Maybe they'll look at that and be like, oh, when she's at a competition with the coaches she trains with, things are better. Maybe they'll look at that.
Right. And that's the thing. This was literally, it seems shocking to us, but Melanie said literally, this is the first time Laurent and Cécile have coached her in a competition. ever. The first time. So, I mean, she's gone to camp. The U.S. lets her go to camp now, which is great because it's great for everybody to have a gymnast of the caliber of a Melanie to be at camp with everybody else. Like, you want to see what the level you're supposed to go to? Watch her. So, yeah. And she also said her execution is better here. And I'm like, and they went back and like learned some basics. And I was like, really? Your execution's better? Like, your execution's always been perfect.
Your execution's better in the U.S.? That's not been my experience.
All right, lesson number 7, Spencer.
Not only is the meet good, the art is good. And this is a lesson we learned from Nola Matthews, who finished second to Simone in the E-score standings. Third if you count Melanie. Simone, then Melanie, then Nola Matthews. And if you look at her floor routine, which if you're watching along with us right now, we're watching it, tied Simone and Kalia Lincoln for the highest execution score on floor. And I really think watching this very different difficulty level. She's not tumbling like Simone and Kalia. She shows, it's kind of like Sana waivers on beam, where she's showing you that there are different ways to get the score, and that Nola's getting the score through art.
Yep. Because how many tenths is that? I have the beam checklist up, but I don't have, it's like 8 tenths that you can add to your routine, as Nicole always reminds me, if you are not getting any deductions from the artistry checklist. I'm so glad that NBC covered that. I think that was such a positive thing that they're explaining that. And also that it's like, they got this rule because the US sucks so bad at artistry and was still winning everything, and everybody else was getting the clue. So yeah. Oh, Nola, just so beautiful. So beautiful. When you watch her routine, this is what we're supposed to be seeing when we look at, when they say artistry, this is it. And you can do it in many different ways. You can do it with hip hop. You can do it with any style you want, but her style is creepy haunted house, and it works for her, and it's fantastic. The pride of Gilroy, Nola Matthews.
And you know how much I love a floor routine that isn't happy.
Oh, it's pain of a nation. Yes.
Pain of a nation. This isn't really pain of a nation. It's more the haunting of a nation. But that's very in right now. The haunting is in. So she's very on trend.
Oh, there is Aki, who's also from her gym, who's hopes, I think. And hopes to be an elite. That's what hope stands for, essentially. Because they're like baby, they're not old enough yet.
Yeah.
She has that. Her theme is, what's that really popular Netflix spooky girl, Addams Family? Wednesday. That's, yes, which it's so, she breaks her neck like 3 times in the routine. Freaking love it. I don't know why whoever's teaching art at Airborne, it sounds like they make them wear berets and paint. Maybe that's what they do. That's how it's so good at their gym at Airborne, or whatever Cleo does. Like,
Jessica's always like, there needs to be a ballet rotation and a painting rotation. You need a still life rotation. You need a ballet rotation.
If they are not covered with chalk and paint splatter when they come out of practice, the gym is not doing it right. That's all I have to say.
Right.
Okay, I want to talk about the most precious to me personally lesson that came from this, like that affected me the most. It makes me so happy. That shows a change overall, which Simone talked about, this change in USA Gymnastics and are things getting better. And she said, yeah, I think it is getting better at USA Gymnastics. But I think owning your gymnastics is a good thing, is the other lesson we learned. And that specifically, I want to point out Leanne Wong, who placed second all around here while taking hard classes in summer school. She has gone to college this whole time. She has some insane, I don't know what, she's like pre-med or something that's really, really hard in college. She's not doing, communications. I know communications is hard for some people, but let's be honest. It's the easy major. Unless you're...
Of course, it's not, and absolutely not useful for your future careers. We don't use any of those skills at all, ever, in our professions.
To this day, unless you're a person like me, who I will say broke in a cold sweat and felt like I was going to puke every time I had to speak in public my entire school life. Me, you guys, me, who can sit in front of a documentary crew now and speak when the whole room is, listening to me record a podcast. It was mandatory to take drama at my high school, which is a magnet school of smarty pantses. I don't know how I got in. And that class changed my whole life. That class made it so that I could do what I do now. So I'm thinking, I didn't say drama majors. Drama's hard. It will change your life. But also, no, communication is important if you want to do what we do.
I can't wait for our behind the scenes episode on Friday, which is just for Club Gender members, which we do every Friday. We're doing it this Friday. I can't wait for the emails that Jessica is going to get from communications majors. Like, you've brightened my whole week with this because I'm so excited.
Spencer always says that I talk too much about, I think other people are like me. So, science and math was hard for me. So pre-med would be hard. I don't know how I passed chemistry. So that's why, for communications would be easier for me. But whatever Leanne Wong is studying would be really hard for me, even though I do have a science degree. Thank you very much. Leanne Wong. Can we talk about Leanne Wong finally? Oh my God. Did you see how she had a bow on the back of her Leo?
I did see that.
I hope she is going to be
business genius.
Business genius. You're not allowed to advertise. You can't have Tony the Tiger on your Leo, but you can have a bow on your Leo. Genius. She's going to not even need to be a doctor. She's going to be like, I'm just going to retire on top of all these bows. All the money buckets of money I'm making from all these, but she's going to lay on them and do the backstroke into her vault of gold. So anyway,
you were talking about owning your own gymnastics. Yes. That's where we started. That's how we started this journey. Yeah.
All right. So Leanne Wong. She is the 2021 silver all-around medalist. So she's really good at gymnastics, you guys. I asked her about managing her own gymnastics now because she does it. She is the one that creates her workout. She's the one that plans all the things that have to do with her gymnastics in elite. And she said it's she herself who approaches the judges at camp to get feedback on her routines. This is if you're new to gymnastics, this is very unusual. There's usually this barrier, the judges are here and the coaches are here, and there's a whole protocol about when you can talk to so-and-so and what you can't. But at camp, she goes up and asks them about her D score, and this is what I had planned, and inquires, why didn't I get the D score that I thought I was going to get, or whatever her deductions are. And I asked her about what is that like for her and why did she start doing that? And she said it's because it's easier this way. It's easier than it's like playing a game of telephone when it's you ask and your coach goes, and then the judge tells the coach and the coach comes back to you. It's just more efficient. And I was like, oh my God, that's the most Leanne Wong thing to ever say. It's more efficient. This is such a scientist thing to say. Mm-hmm. And she also said it's easier just because growing up and going to college makes things easier. Being an adult and can make things easier in your life because you know more things and you're more mature and all of that. So I just loved hearing about that from her and hearing the specifics of what it's like. And I hope this isn't as unusual in the future. I hope that more gymnasts feel empowered to get their own answers this way, and you don't have to do whatever works for you, but I love that this works for her.
And I loved her floor routine, by the way, at Classic. Yeah. Great. I also thought it was really interesting that she did not do the Arabian double pike from her college routine.
Right.
Usually elite is adding, you have to for elite routines, you have to add the big skills to your college routines. And she was like, nah, not this one. I'm going to do a double layout instead. Deal with that.
And I think that this also points to her managing her own career. She has gotten the artistry award at camp, which they give now because they're incentivizing. I talked to Dan Baker about that, who is one of the 3 people who runs the elite program in camp. And he said, yeah, we're incentivizing that. And I was like, the word incentivizing, Dan, this is what we've been talking about forever. They're incentivizing a second vault. They have a bonus for that with the juniors and the hopes. And they're also incentivizing the artistry. So they have an award and she has won it. And I think this is the thing that's so smart about her. She knows she can maximize where other people will get deductions, like you're talking about Nola Matthews, is getting her score in other places, and it's by not getting all the artistry deductions. The same with Leanne Wong. It's smart The less you do, the higher you can score. Do whatever you do really well. This is what it should say at the beginning of the code of points. It should just say that in big letters, and then it should have all the rules.
Next, Leanne needs to be like, so does this artistry award come with any seed money for my bow business? How can we turn this into like a cash prize situation?
Oh my god. I know the FIG would have Longy and some watch company, slapping down some cash for that. Let's go.
Maybe it's going to end up that Leanne's bow company is so successful, she's the sponsor of the artistry award. Leanne Wong's
excellent.
bows present being good at performing.
You guys, those bows are everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. You cannot open your eyes in an arena, a gymnastics meet in the United States and not see one of her bows. Like I'm surprised if she was managed by one of those NIL companies, she would be in the rankings for making the most money for her bows.
Free idea.
Yeah.
Nastia Lucan Cup. Partnership with Leanne to provide a bespoke bow for everyone who qualifies to the Nastia Lucan Cup. They would be obsessed with them. It would go fantastically. I'm just saying. This is free idea.
Genius.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I shall text Nastia immediately and tell her this. Okay. Deep dive time. And reminder that we did 3 episodes on Classic already. There's already 3. So we go into everyone in detail. But let's talk about the kind of what we expect upcoming, because this was just the qualifier to championships, really. This is a practice meet for the people that are really going to win things at Worlds and Olympics. So who needs to show that they're at 80% instead of 50% at US Championships in San Jose?
Yeah. I would say I'm looking for that from Kayla DiCello, is someone who has worked, she's progressing. She did 2 events at American Classic. She did 1 at camp. She added back the all-around at the US Classic at this competition. A fine meet, fall on bars. Who didn't? It's Classic. No one cares. But I think we need to see the next progression in terms of adding back more difficulty at championships. Like, she was still doing the Yurchenko full-on vault, which is a downgrade from her college vault. So I think that in terms of trying to put together, who's the highest scoring team, what pieces fit, Kayla DiCello doesn't yet have the scores to fit into any of the options. Now, she is a world bronze medalist. We have seen her for many years. She was 4th at nationals last year. Would have had a very, very good argument to be on the world's team had she pursued it, which she did not. But we need to see her take that next level. I would also say that's true for Tiana Sumasekara, who, again, fell on bars, whatever. It's not her event. Was fine on beam, but had some shaky things for a 13.5. So she's someone I'm looking for to hit that 14 marker that we were talking about on beam, which is really her event. But vault, beam, and floor are all excellent for her. So she's another one who can step up to get to that level, to get into the conversation about potential teams, which is once again going to be so hard this year and so impossible to make. And it's already very difficult. And there are Olympians who aren't on the highest scoring team. So, there are other people who have the scoring potential who are going to want to get back into the mix at championships.
We talk so much on all the Classic episodes that we did from there about the things people were having problems with. So what do we know for sure your routine is cursed if you're trying to do these skills going into championships? Who should immediately eliminate?
Curses are very important. Yeah. So we've found out which events are cursed in 2023. It's like the opposite of an Oprah's favorite things. It's not what's on trend or what everyone's doing. It's what's cursed this year. So TOEFL's absolutely cursed on bars. Sumasekara, DiCello, Simone somehow survived. Simone avoided the ghost. Like, the curse ghost was coming toward her on the TOEFL, and so she straddled so that the ghost went through her legs instead of getting her, so she didn't fall on her TOEFL like most people did. But it was a huge problem, and so TOEFLs are cursed. Side aerials on beam, like even Sky Blakely with her aerial cartwheel, that was like the only thing that was an issue on her beam routine, on Simone's beam routine. So aerial cartwheels are out. And obviously switch halves, right? Even though
Yes.
Kalia Lincoln gets a get out of curse free card because of her execution, but most don't.
Yeah. I also want to remind people that if you are new or you just are like, I haven't memorized the entire code of points, Spencer has something called the clickable code of points on his website, thebalancebeamsituation.com. Is it the Balance Beam Situation or just Balance Beam Situation?
Just balancebeamsituation.com. I want to keep it as confusing as possible. It's
So-
called gatekeeping.
I reference this all the time because I'll be like, wait, what is the value of that? And I can't remember. And I referenced it today because, first of all, I was like, I wonder who he has on here as doing like an exemplar of the perfect switch half. And but also I wanted to see what it was valued at, because the thing is, everybody is using these even though they're unwatchable because they're worth a D. So it's like, even if it sucks and you don't get to split, and so you're getting like 5/10 in execution deductions, everyone's like, but it's still a D, and you have to have your D in there so you get your bonus and boobity boob to get their start value. So it's unfortunate, and it should be downgraded to an A.
Who do you think my example is? Because when I made this, my example of a switch half that I used was Erin McAdag, because we were talking about Kathy. That was like in the era we were talking about Kathy Johnson moaning every time Erin McAdag did her switch half. So that was relevant.
Erin McAdag. That is her, right?
That's what I'm using.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was saying, do you have a different recommendation? Because I would say not all of the gifts on the clickable code of points are like the exemplar ones. Sometimes it's just, this is someone who came to mind who I know did that skill, and I can find it quickly.
Hers is not. Her split is perfect, which is what most people can't do. But it's not. It wouldn't be deductionless because it is. Her split is in an angle where her back leg is higher than her front leg, which is like deduction schmuction. But I mean, what's Kalia Lincoln's look like? I don't remember, but I'm
She's
like,
another one where it's like, the thing I like about her switch half is that the back leg is high enough.
Is higher, yeah. I mean, Simone's is always perfect and straight legs and pointed toes and all of that. But I like McAdag's, and it's nice to have examples of NCAA gymnasts who do it so well.
This is our next assignment. Who has the best switch half?
Yeah. Okay. If you guys have suggestions,
our nerd assignment of the week. Best ever switch half.
We can start a thread on the forum about best switch half. Who should be in the clickable code of points, because they're a lot. We talked a lot about looking forward to the world team and Olympic team, and how the way USA Gymnastics has been running, they're not taking specialists like they did in 2016, for example. Taking people who, for the 3-up-3 count, which means 3 people perform and all 3 scores count, so no one can mess up. There isn't like a throwaway score like there is in college competitions. All the routines count in team finals. That they just haven't been taking that person. If you can raise the team score by a point on bars, like a Zoe Miller, we're like, but are they going to put her on the team if they're not going to use her for prelims on more events? So where do you see the event specialist conundrum now after we watch classics?
I think it's going to be an issue, because I don't think this group right now, with some exceptions, it does not lend itself well to all-around based selection, like the way the U.S. selected the Olympic team last time, which was just the top 4 in the all-around were the 4-member team, and then there were the +2 specialists. We had a lot of thoughts about it at the time. Some passionate feelings about this selection process. This group does not lend itself to doing that, because what if you have a situation, a quite likely or potential situation, where Joss Robertson, vault, beam, and floor at selection camp are like huge 14.5s, crazy scores, and then she gets like a 10 on bars because it's bars, and she's not going to get a great score, and then she's not part of the top scoring all-arounders, even though she fits on a team. Zoe Miller, amazing bar score, potential to be on a highest scoring team for bars. The other scores aren't really that high. I think that could come up at nationals when we're talking about making the national team top 10 all around. I could see a situation where Zoe Miller doesn't end up top 10 all around because of the other events, but how would you not have her on national team? She's been on like every team this year, and her bars is obviously important. So that's going to be an issue. Suni, I don't know if she's going to feel like she's had enough training time to add back floor.
Yep.
We'll see. I think that's the plan. That's what they've said. They want to add back floor. But, as she's also said, it's really day to day with her and what she's able to do and how she's able to train. Maybe they're like, we need to hold that back for 2024.
Mhm.
That should have no bearing on Suni making a world's team because you want that bars and beam. If she's doing that, I don't really care whether she's doing floor or not. So what I think USAG needs to do right now is provide extreme clarity on how they're going to select this team. What is going to be valued and how specialists are going to take into account more than just the nonsense language of like world-class presentation. Like that's nothing. That doesn't give anyone information. Not only does that not give us information, that doesn't give the gymnasts themselves information or the coaches information about what am I being evaluated on? Am I being evaluated on my worst event or just my good ones?
Yep.
So I would like it's like in the intervening weeks before championships or then maybe before selection camp, some very specific language on exactly what they intend to do. Because there's so many ways you can pick a team. There are lots of good ways and some dumb ways. But what the most important thing is that you tell everyone what you're doing and then you stick to it. You don't say like, oh, you can make national team if you do this, and then you don't stick to it, which has been a problem a lot of times before.
I really want them to say something very specific, like the team will be picked by the highest scoring team by 3-up 3-count finals, and then you also have to be in the highest scoring team for a prelim scenario, which is 5-up. Is it 5-up 4-count still?
In prelims, yeah.
In prelims. So that, but maybe they won't do that because there might be someone that adds like a Suni on beam who adds so much, but they want someone that can do all the other events. Like I'm giving examples of not specifically what they should do, but something that is actually data driven and you can actually see it when you put the math together. And then if there's like 2 or 3 people who make up equal highest scoring teams, that they say, well, we're going to base this on your past performance. Like, how have you done this year? Or someone with the most experience who's competed the most times and proven that they can hit in a competition, that they actually qualify that specifically. I mean, there should be a part that's just like Jessica's feelings put Nola Matthews on every single team. But unfortunately, I mean, but Nola with the bars and floor. Oh, yes. Just Nola, you guys. That's all I have to say. Okay. Do
you have any final nationals? Anything that's still you haven't gotten off your chest from anyone from nationals?
Is there things?
There's plenty of time, or from classics. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm already moved on to nationals. That's why. Maybe we'll talk about it then when we preview championships.
I just feel like the thing that made me really happy was just like the vibe. We talked to Lily for a while. Lily Young, who is the president of USA Gymnastics, who has like took on the dumpster fire and has really made things much, much better. Nothing is perfect, but it is a whole different. Just being at the events is different. Like the staff is like women and women of color all over the place. It's so different, the makeup of the who runs these meets now. I think I want to give her credit for like changing so much of the vibe, but what was really obvious on the floor is that the vibe is different. USA Gymnastics is different. The expectations are different, but Lily cannot control specific gyms. And there are gyms that you watch, and those coaches in that gym, the athletes are stressed. They are not relaxed. They are just, you can see it coming off of them. They're stressed, and you see it in their performances. And that might, it might be this kind of gym also attracts that kind of person. Are you super type A personality and that's your whole vibe in your life? That's where you want to go, right? Like, I think there's a reason Leanne Wong did really well at Gage. But also, like, it just shows that USAG is just a national governing body. They're not running these gyms. This isn't a country where it's a nationalized program and they are dictating the culture of these gyms. They're not. So as much as USA Gymnastics can do from the top down, they can't control specific gyms and how they interact with the athletes. And I think it's really nice that World Champion Center did so well here, because they seem to have the most relaxed, comfortable, feeling loved for who they are, not how they do, gymnasts on the floor. That is, I mean, there's many other gyms that I can talk about like that are like that too, but I'm just, they did the best, and it's Simone's gym, and Simone has always been herself no matter where she goes, as we have seen, and you can see that kind of as well. And also, World Champion Center has someone running their social media now who is hilarious and doing a great job. And I just want to shout out to whoever that person is, their secret, the secret person. So what about you? Final thoughts?
I think that I am excited to see us progress through the competitions this summer in a way that isn't always the case, in terms of the athletes raising the level of competition of each other and pushing each other, and what a deep field this can be, and what high quality gymnastics this can be. So yeah, things are trending in an exciting sporting direction for me, in addition to like feelings, vibes, whatever Jessica was talking about.
Can you give an example of
the
that?
scores, and yeah,
the progression.
I think what we were talking about with like how Jade and Jordan are two gymnasts who are competing at this competition, who are really getting pushed by a younger generation, but also didn't show nearly everything they can show, or even their best events. So then you see that progression. What are we going to see when they're putting in their full difficulty compared to everyone else, and everyone's pushing each other?
There's one more thing that we talked about in our 3 other hours of classic coverage, but we didn't talk about here yet. And now I think it's really important, is there was a lot of controversy about the E-scores, especially on beam, and people were really confused about what was happening and upset about people getting really high E-scores, even with falls and stuff like that. And I think I want to point out, talking to Lauren of the gymter.net, when we always link to her show because she has great rankings and does incredible research. I was asking her, I was like, do you feel like this is out of proportion for the rest of what's happening in the world? Do you think this is different? And because we talked about how it was so different from Worlds, like this is not the same judging at Worlds. And this is the problem, even though we're in the same quad, right? The rules change every 4 years. But really the rules change every time the FIG sees a direction that things are going. And then they put out this update for the judges, and the judges start judging differently. And the example of that is in 2017, when the average E-score on beam, they were like from 7 to a 3 E-score. And then we get to the Olympics, that was Tokyo Olympics, and that's totally different E-scores. So I think the point that I'm trying to make in talking to her is, yes, the judging is different, but it's not different from since the new FIG directions came out, the scores are consistent in terms of the E-scores. So they're not what we're seeing at Worlds, but last year in 2022 in Liverpool, but the E-scores and the execution judging is consistent with what happened at the Asian Games and what happened at the University Games. And this isn't like the U.S. judges have lost their minds and are judging differently than the rest of the world, and they're going to get to Worlds and be like, what? Why are my, E-scores so much lower or whatever? It seems like, it's almost like they're trained to do it the way the rest of the people in the world are. So
I feel like that on floor, they're really I thought the floor judging was like, we know you're getting a 7-2 for a hit routine at Worlds, so we're going to give you a 7-2 for a hit routine. Deal with that.
Yeah. So I just want to make that clear. All right. So please remember to get your live show tickets, gymcastic.com. It's coming up at Championships on the Saturday of Championships. Please remember to subscribe wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Reminder, if you listen on Stitcher like me and you love Stitcher, Stitcher is about to go away. So add us to your favorite podcast platform. I'm so upset about Stitcher going away. And thank you so much for your support, especially to our Club Gym members who made this trip possible. And until Friday for Behind the Scenes at noon Pacific, remember to take off on gay, split on rights, and we'll see you on Friday for Behind the Scenes. Thanks for listening. This show is created, executive produced, edited, audio engineered, and published by me, Jessica O'Byrne.
Managing editor in charge of show notes, podcast content, and wrangling over enthusiasm is Spencer Barnes.
Our news editor is Uncle Tim of gymnastics-history.com.
And customer service, IT, Gymternet news, and additional production services are provided by Steve Cooper, aka Fact Check.